All right, you often hear people talk about love bombing. Love bombing is a term used to describe a behavior in which someone overwhelms you with compliments or with loving sentiments, but it's not real. It's not meant. You sense that something's off with it. Now, love bombing is one of the number one things psychologists and let me say social workers tend to warn you about when encountering a potential predator or when you're being led into a cult. But I've already explained this before in previous videos and I've paid details to it. For those that missed it, I'm going to repeat it here in a brief way to inform you that love bombing is not the number one trick predators use, whether to lure you in a cult or in some other kind of trick. Okay? What I'm about to reveal to you now, I revealed it before, but what I'm about to hear now will spare you a lot of trouble. Because understand, to prevent predators from taking advantage of you or of the people in your environment, you need to understand how predators operate. And I already explained, predators are just alert. They don't have a magical deep secret like some people think they have. They're just alert, very alert. And they have to be alert so that nobody would come after them. And here's the thing, because they are preying on others, unconsciously they expect others to do the same with them. That's why they're so alert. So their alertness is not a natural alertness, it's a pathological alertness. But nevertheless, they are alert. Okay? It comes down to this. When a predator wants to go after a prey, the predator wants the prey to be, first of all, clueless, or that the prey is, let me say, confused. The prey has to be confused or completely unaware. One of the two. Now, there are times it's obviously that the prey has to be aware somewhere. But then you want the prey to be confused, so the prey will make the wrong judgment about the situation and therefore be tricked into what you want them to be tricked into. Now, to explain this, I'm going to use this map again of New Spain. Now you may think, Rashid, why are you using this map of New Spain again? Okay, I'm using colonial history to teach you guys something here. So what I'm about to tell now, this parable, just think with me and imagine with me, okay? Let's go to 1795, not 1800, but 1795, okay? This is Guatemala here. Now today, the Republic of Guatemala is just this piece over here. It's the Republic of Guatemala, but in the colonial times, this was one autonomous country, one autonomous kingdom, Guatemala. And San Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica were all provinces of that kingdom. And you had the province of Guatemala and the province of Chiapas. Chiapas today belongs to the Republic of Mexico. But in that time, this was one wealthy kingdom. It was one of the most prosperous countries in the Americas. It was ruled by Spain. This was an extension of Spain's rule, okay? Now, let's say you had pirates that wanted to loot this kingdom. Now, the captain of the crew, let's say you have one ship with pirates and they want to loot Guatemala. They want to withdraw as much money as possible from the banks because the Spanish had gold reserves and silver reserves over there. Now, the captain hired an ethnographer from Cuba. And that Spaniard from Cuba, who worked for that pirate captain, he visited Guatemala. He remained there for 2 months. He traveled throughout the country. In the third month, he went to the captain of that pirate ship. And the ethnographer told the pirate, the captain, listen, in the kingdom of Guatemala, you have two provinces in the north, the province of Chiapas and the province of Guatemala. Those are the most populous. Most of the cities are built over there. There's where you have most banks. Then you have the province of Honduras, which is a contested territory. There's much conflict over there. Then you have the province of San Salvador, which is a tiny province, which is mostly used for the maritime trade with Asia. Because besides Acapulco, the Spanish also use San Salvador to import trade that comes from Asia. So San Salvador also has quite some abundance. But then you have the province of Nicaragua and the province of Costa Rica. Those are highly militarized. Why? Due to the Mosquito Coast. You know about that, Captain, the Mosquito Coast, where you have the Mosquito Indians. They're not fond of Spanish rule. They preferred British rule, but Britain had to concede the Mosquito Coast to Spain. Now, even before Britain conceded the Mosquito Coast to Spain, there was a lot of conflict in Nicaragua and Costa Rica. So Nicaragua and Costa Rica are both under a military dictatorship directly. The governors of both of those provinces are like military dictators. And there are conflicts between tribes over there also. You have only a few towns like Leon, New Segovia, Managua. You have a few towns that are really prosperous, where you have wealthy people living. Those are like European cities. But the rest of it are just small villages, and the roads are not always that well maintained. So the ethnographer explained to the captain, if you want to loot in Guatemala, you need to go either to the north, to either the province of Chiapas or the province of Guatemala, or you need to go to Leon. Leon is the capital of the province of Nicaragua. It's one of the two. Well, the captain said, Leon is a far better option for us because, as you said, in the north of Guatemala, that's where most people live. And we can't afford to go into a populous region because we're not that many. My crew only has 150 men. So we have to be very quick. Then the ethnographer told them, well, Captain, there's one thing you can do. Send 20 men of yours to Tela. Tela is a port in the province of Honduras. Then the captain asked, why would I do that? The ethnographer explained, send 20 of your men over there, let them commit arson, and let them throw some bombs here and there randomly in the streets, and let them leave immediately. There isn't much presence over there of the Spanish Navy, so they can do it. The captain asked, yeah, but what will that do for us? I mean, we have to go to Leon, right? And you talk about Tela. The ethnographer explained, when you bomb Tela in Honduras, it will take a day or two before the Spanish authorities in Honduras find out what happened. And they will pick all their troops and go towards Tela to find out what's going on. And within a week, they will guard the whole northern shore of Honduras. And the Royal Audiencia de Guatemala, or I'm saying the national government of Guatemala, or better said, the local Spanish government over here in Guatemala City, they will be informed also. So all the attention of the state and of the military will go to Tela and to Honduras. And because their focus is on the Bay of the Antilles, they are tricked into thinking that British pirates came over and attacked Tela. So they'll go after the British ambassador in Guatemala to ask for an explanation. So while all of this is going on, some other men of you go on land at the border between Costa Rica and Nicaragua. There's a river over there. You put your ship over there. You sail in small ships onto the river. You then arrive at the Managua Lake, and then you cross the Managua Lake, and from there there's a road going to Leon. To do all of that may take about 3 days. When you arrive in Leon, you pretend to be bankers from the Viceroyalty of New Granada. With fake papers, you will be able to withdraw much gold and silver from the banks over there. And after you do that, you return back to your ship. That will take around, all things together will take up around 10 days. Meanwhile, your men who committed an assault in Tilla have returned also. So within 10 or 11 days, you'll be able to gather much spoil from Guatemala without being noticed. You can't just go to a random port and say and jump off the ship with swords and loot. You can't do that. You have to distract them by bombing one of the least expected ports. Now, that was the parable I gave unto you. Now, what did this symbolize? When people talk about love bombing, they have this expectation that someone comes to them with all kinds of flattery to trick them. Now, people understand after all that flattery often is used as a trick. So that would be like bombing Tilla, because you would expect it. Okay, so when it happens, you get fed up with it. You don't want anything to do with it, so you resist. Just like in that parable, the Spanish troops go to Honduras to find out what's going on. And because the British press is near, and the British were not always on good terms with the Spanish, the governor of Guatemala, which we also call the Captain General, may call the British ambassador to ask what's going on. So when all of that is going on, the energy is over here. So the focus is not over here. Because Nicaragua, well, there ain't much people living there anyway, so nobody's going to expect any loots to happen over there. But then, you'll have people, let's say that in real life, when this is happening, when someone love bombs you and you're fed up with it, you'll have someone else that comes with a counter love bombing, an antidote to this. And because there's an antidote to this, you are relieved from the love bombing, so you think finally. And it is this finally moment that you're tricked. It's then you're being robbed. It's then you're being lured into a trap. Okay, how does it go in practice? Ladies, pay close attention, because when you see through this trick, it can save your life. You have Jessica walking through town, and you have some guys standing over there. Let me say they are catcalling her, saying all kinds of sexual remarks. She gets annoyed. She thinks, "Oh dear, why is this happening?" This happens a few days after each other. So while this is happening, she develops resistance against what's happening, and this resistance develops into an attachment. And this attachment is a negative attachment because it's an aversive attachment. And this negative attachment, she carries it with her. So her will has become negative towards those men doing it. But she's the one carrying the negativity. So she now has developed a weight in her thinking, which means she's now generating negative, heavy energy. So there comes a point that this energetic mind is triggered and she loses it. She doesn't want that to happen. Just before that's about to happen, you have this guy coming out of the blue and saying, "Guys, leave this girl alone, man. What the heck is wrong with you?" That guy stands up for Jessica. And then Jessica thanks him, they talk for a while, and the guy says, "I don't even know why they're after you like that." And Jessica thinks, "You get what I'm saying?" She feels understood in all of it. What has happened? She had an aversive attachment, okay, towards those men that were catcalling her. That weighs her down. Now someone comes and validates her expectation and frees her from whatever's provoking her. But she doesn't realize that it's not those men catcalling her that's the real issue now. She has an aversive attachment that's weighing down. But now this guy comes and stands up for her, and she is glad. She feels relieved. And now instantly she develops an attractive attachment towards the one that relieved her. Now the one that relieved her is not hitting on her, doing anything like that. He just moves away, does his own business. But because she now has two attachments, an aversive attachment and attractive attachments, both are weighing her down, so now she wants relief. She both wants the validation of being against catcalling, and she wants the validation of people standing up for her and agreeing with her. She's now very vulnerable, and then Satan sends someone into her life, a guy that doesn't catcall her, who's very polite and all of that, and she feels comfortable around him. And it's this guy Satan wanted her to fall for all along. Those guys were catcalling her in the streets, and the guys who up for her, those were just tools to lead her to this guy, because this guy doesn't appear dangerous at all. But just like those pirates that crossed towards Leon, and they looked like bankers or diplomats from Spanish diplomats from New Granada, in the same manner that this guy now is the real danger. But it's only after she has been love bombed smoothly by this new guy, and things have gone far, she will realize that she's been trapped. And once she realizes she's been trapped, she will only focus on that guy, on the love bombing of that guy. But it wasn't the love bombing of that guy that trapped her to begin with. The trap happened from the moment those guys began to catcall her. And interesting, it's not the catcalling of those guys that tricked her. It's her unexamined expectation of wanting to be left alone that was triggered. And this unexamined expectation of wanting to be left alone was triggered against those guys. And she acted out that unexamined expectation. She wanted to be left alone. And this irritation, because it just didn't work, built a aversive attachment inside of her, which wounded her inner energy field and granted evil spirits access to her more easily. So love bombing, or in the parable she comes to you, bombing Tilla, is not the real assault. The real assault happens when you get rid of the bombing of Tilla, or you get rid of the love bombing. The first love bombing. The first love bombing and the relief from the love bombing are part of the scheme. Because while the relief from the love bombing is going on, you're being robbed, you're being drawn into the negative. That's the trick Satan is using on many people. But when they realize they're in a trap, they only focus on the immediate circumstance. They don't look beyond and see the whole situation. Now, understand the following. Just like in the parable I just gave onto you here, when predators come, they evaluate the situation. They are very alert, just like I told you. And they map out people's patterns, people's expectations. They can read people's emotions very well. So they know the right words to say and the right words not to say to trick people into deception. The reason why this can happen so easily is because people don't see through stuff. Now just explain onto you. Don't be distracted by love bombing, nor by the relief from love bombing. It's the aversive attachment that develops that you need to be aware of. And this aversive attachment can only develop if you have unexamined expectations, means expectations that don't agree with Christ. Anytime you have any expectation that can't be reconciled with Christ, that expectation is like a minefield that's dormant. And that minefield needs to be energized for the mines to work. So the only thing the enemy has to do is to wait for the right moment and then send people to provoke those mines. And those mines become active, and then the enemy waits. And it's just a matter of time, and the mines are triggered and things go off. Things get out of hand. Now, that's why I always tell you to agree with Christ. That's why I always tell you to examine your expectations. Look, there are people who see through what I just explained. And that's why predators have a very hard time coming after them. For example, you can have a ghetto. And in this ghetto you have those demon-possessed, violent men that always want to look for a fight. They want to act out violence. and they often look for fights with random strangers. And then there are people, guys living in that community, they have no gun, they don't know any karate nor any martial arts, they just walk around freely, but those violent predators never succeed in getting into a fight. Why? First of all, those guys tend to avoid such place where those people like to come, because violent people tend to come at places that are familiar unto them, because they operate in patterns and cycles. Secondly, those guys who never get drawn into fights, they see through stuff. They know that violence is an energetic outpouring of negative energy. So they know that when your mind is wounded, or when your mind is frustrated, you're very susceptible to negative energy. So those guys make sure that every morning they wake up with a smile, and that they are excited all the time. By doing this, they are becoming very unattractive to violent people. Violent people may be triggered by their happiness, but violent people can't stand being around them. When they, however, see other people waking up and complaining, they see that those people already have negative energy, and negative energy attracts negative energy. So when you're in the negative, you easily attract negative. You get what I'm saying here? So those guys, when they walk through town and someone begins to look at them for too long, they just keep walking on, they ignore it. They just keep enjoying their day. And when they notice people keep looking at them, they begin to smile also. They begin to emit this gladness. And what happens? Those guys looking for a fight feel embarrassed and shocked, and they just look the other way around. But then you have guys walking in the streets, and they notice people staring at them, and they become annoyed, thinking, why the heck are you staring at me? Here's the thing, they have aversive attachment, because they have this unexamined expectation they want to be left alone, no matter what. Now, when this unexamined expectation is triggered, aversive attachment is generated, so they generate negative energy in their energy field, and that negative energy that they generate functions as a magnet, and that magnet now attracts those violent predators looking for a fight. You get what I'm saying? But most people don't look at the bigger picture. They think, I need to carry a gun, or I need to learn karate, or some other martial arts so that I can defend myself. They don't realize that it begins in your thinking. They don't realize as a spirit being, when you operate in the negative, you attract negative, you attract danger. They don't realize that it's their thinking that needs to be renewed, and how they relate to situations and relate to other people. So again, beware of aversive attachment. Don't be distracted by love bombing. It's not the love bombing that's the real trick. The real trick is to distort your perception, so you won't see your own unexamined expectations that will draw and enable danger onto you once those unexamined expectations are triggered. That's the whole trick. Do you understand now what New Testament tells us to examine ourselves to see whether we're in the faith? Because when you're not in the faith, but you're operating in relief seeking, well, you're open to a lot of stuff. You're open to a lot of danger when you operate in relief seeking. And there's the thing, most people aren't even aware they're operating in relief seeking. They think they walk by faith just because they go to church, or they read the Bible, or they pray every day. That's why I'm telling you, examine your expectations. Make sure your expectations are in line with Christ. Examine yourselves. Be at peace.